Hi, it's Eric White here. In the near future, I'm going to be putting up a few screencasts dealing with several aspects of SharePoint. The first thing that you have to do is get up and going with a virtual machine, or in some fashion put together your SharePoint development environment. My favorite way to get started with SharePoint is to use the IW demo virtual machine. You can download that virtual machine here. Few quick points before we get started on getting this virtual machine up and going. This system configuration I have here, it's nothing really too awfully powerful. It's a Lenovo T61 laptop. It's a laptop that I bought off of eBay for less than $300. I then upgraded it to 8 GB of RAM. I think that cost a couple $100. Main thing is that I have added a solid state drive. It's an Intel 160 GB solid state drive. And key point about this is it's connected just via USB 2.0. I didn't go to the effort of connecting it via a SATA or an eSATA connection. It's not an internal drive, it's just a USB 2.0 external drive. I've done a fair number of experiments to see what the best configuration is for getting a virtual machine up and going, and I've gone so far as to put together a quad-core machine with the SSD installed as an internal SSD using a SATA cable. I've connected it up to another 4-core machine where I used an eSATA cable. The differences in performance between all of those configurations and this fairly simple configuration of a 2-core machine with 8 GB of RAM and a solid state drive connected via USB 2.0, the differences are really marginal. This configuration works just fine. Once the virtual machine has stabilized, this configuration performs just about as well for me as doing more fancy configurations with more cores and connecting the solid state drive via a SATA or eSATA cable. Quick note about using this IW demo virtual machine. Before you import the virtual machine, make sure that you set up the virtual network properly. You have to add an internal network adapter. Then you have to go into network properties, change the adapter settings, bring up the properties for the internal adapter that you have added via the Hyper-V manager. Go into IPv4 properties, and you need to set the following IP addresses. You have to set the IP address to 192.168.156, set your subnet mask, and set the preferred DNS server. All of the instructions for setting up this virtual machine in this fashion and for setting up your internal network adapter are here in the instructions for setting up the host machine for the SharePoint 2010 virtual machines. These instructions are available when you download all of the various parts for this virtual machine. You can download all of the parts for this virtual machine as well as these instructions here. Here on my external solid state drive, I have expanded those RAR files. After expanding those RAR files, it creates this directory as you see it here. There is this config file that defines the import as well as the various virtual hard disks, virtual machine definitions, and so on. Now we're ready to import that virtual machine. I've imported this virtual machine other times on this machine, so I'm going to copy the virtual machine and create a new unique ID. You can safely always pick that option. The first time that you're importing a virtual machine, you can tell the import wizard to move or restore the virtual machine, but it's also always just safe to copy the virtual machine and create a new unique ID. Let's do the import. This import is now done right here. One of the first things that I always do is to go into the settings. First of all, we just want to make sure that this VM bus network adapter correctly is using the internal network adapter, which it is. And if I am on a 4-core machine, then I'll change the number of processors here to 4 as opposed to 2. Now I'll click OK. Now we can start this virtual machine. I'm going to cut some of this so that you don't have to wait for this virtual machine to import and get going properly. I'll time the process, though, give you some idea of how long it takes to do this process. Sometimes it's interesting to right-click on the virtual machine as it's getting going and click the Connect context menu. Okay, that took about 2 minutes to get to the point where we can press Control-Alt-Delete to log on. I'll select Control-Alt-Delete up there on the menu. One point about this virtual machine, as it comes configured, the screen size is set up to be very large, and on this laptop the screen size isn't that big. So you have to move around this console window so that you can press the OK button here. And here we have to type in the password, which is PASS@WORD1. You will notice that the first thing that this virtual machine does when it starts running is to run this warm-up script that hits every page in the portal to force their jitting. While this is running, I will click on the screen here and change the screen resolution. And I'll change it to 1024 by 768. I do this so that it makes it easier to work with this virtual machine through this console, so that the screen size of the virtual machine isn't so big. Later on, we're going to use remote desktop connection to connect to this virtual machine, and that will improve our experience quite a bit. The size of the display isn't important in that circumstance. I'll show you what I mean by that. Continuing to wait here for the warm-up script to finish running. So the next thing that we see is that even while this warm-up script is running, after booting this virtual machine, Windows Server 2008 the version that's running inside this virtual machine, sees some differences in hardware, and puts up the message, "You must restart your computer to apply these changes." I believe that this message is a result of the internal adapter, and that this virtual machine has never seen that internal adapter before. It's not possible for it to have seen that adapter before, because you created that internal adapter as part of the process of preparing Hyper-V to run this virtual machine, and then you connected to this internal adapter at the point where you import the virtual machine into Hyper-V. I'm going to click Restart now. Even though that warm-up script hasn't finished running, it doesn't matter. Let's let that machine reboot. We're now 7.5 minutes into the process. That's how long it's taken. I've cut some of the time out of this video just to give you an idea of how long this process takes. I'll continue to report how long it's been since I started the process of importing and starting this virtual machine. We're ready to log on to the virtual machine again. Again, type the password PASS@WORD1, and once again this warm-up script will run. Often at this point in time I will switch to full screen mode. I'm going to auto hide the taskbar on my host OS. Now I can see just the console for the virtual machine. It's running in full screen mode. Sometime right around this point I'll start the browser. So now we have the warm-up script running, and we have the browser attempting to pull up the SharePoint site. Server operating systems and server applications such as SharePoint run best after they have been running for quite some time. All of the right stuff has been cached, everything has been JITted as appropriate. So at this point in time, this is often where I'll go to lunch or go do something else entirely different and let this virtual machine operate by itself. Let it get all working properly. Let the warm-up script continue to run, and eventually this Internet Explorer window will pull up the SharePoint site. This takes quite a while. I don't notice any appreciable difference in the time that it takes to do this, regardless of the type of machine that I'm operating with. So in this particular case, it's not a very powerful machine, a 2-core machine with 8 gig of RAM and the external solid-state drive. I see the same delay in getting the machine going also on 4-core machines that have internal solid-state drives. This is just a process that you have to go through to get the virtual machine to be happy. You'll notice here that the Internet Explorer window got a 404 not found error. I'll just click the refresh button again. I'm going to close this window and start it again. And over here we're still waiting for the warm-up script to finish. This is the end of the first of these 2 screencasts that show how to get the IW demo machine up and running. Please continue with the second screencast.